pardon?
President of the dog park.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
All right. We are on chapter 24, verse 9. If there is something you want to go back and look at, Dina, we certainly can.
No, I've got nothing important that I'm sure you didn't get to.
Well, there was just one thing that we were sort of wishy-washy about.
All right, please no bringing this up.
Yes.
Not
yes.
Tina.
Because we spent a long time on this, and I think we got an answer, but I'd like your input. And that is the blood of the sacrifice of the Ola was it made in half. Half was sprinkled on the altar. The other half was sprinkled on the people. And we talked about the sprinkling on the people business. Was it on the pillars that represented the 12 tribes? Was it literally on the elders who represented the people?
Right. There are a bunch of different opinions about whether that's symbolic or historical or what. And then we also talked about the circumcision, mikvah, and dashing of blood.
Yeah, the getting the immersing oneself before,
which they did.
Okay, so I'm assuming that the thing that holds those three together is blood.
We talked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No, we're waiting, Dina.
What's your question?
Well, the question. Well, do you have any commentary, or have you any text there that speaks to this division of the blood, at least, and the sprinkling of the people?
No, except
okay.
what's in Eitz Chaim, which I'm sure Lenore read last week.
Yeah.
But
I have nothing in my other source.
All right. Well, let's go on, and we can always. I'm sure there will be lots more blood in the Bible. So. Okay. So we are on chapter 24, verse 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Moses and Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, and 70 elders of Israel ascended the mountain. Right. They went up the mountain. Okay. And they saw the God of Israel. Oh my gosh. Under his feet, there was the likeness of a pavement of sapphire, like the very sky for purity. Let me just read one more verse.
Wow.
Yet he did not raise his hand against the leaders of the Israelites. They beheld God, and they ate and drank.
Gosh.
They saw God. So Nachmanides said, oh, wait a second. Let's start with Rashi. They looked and they peeked, which earned them the death penalty. But the Holy One did not wish to adulterate the joy of receiving Torah. So he delayed the deaths of Nadav and Avihu until the day the tabernacle was dedicated. So Nadav and Avihu are two of Aaron's sons, and they die when they bring an Eish Zara, of a strange fire, later on in the book of Leviticus. But it's saying here that because they peeked at God, they earned the death penalty. God, however, didn't fulfill it then because everyone was so happy about getting the Torah, so God delayed their deaths until later on. Wow.
I wanted to say that we talked about that. I don't know, it was in this class or it had been the Talmud class, and we didn't know why Nadav and Abihu were killed when they were. Nobody could figure out why. This is the first time I'm really hearing that it was because they peeked.
Well, no. What we know from the text of Leviticus is that they died because they brought a strange fire. They did something wrong in the sanctuary. What we're unclear on
the reason behind it.
Right, what was strange about it. But this is suggesting that actually the reason they died is because of what they did here, which is kind of amazing.
That makes it clear. I don't know. I never heard.
All right. So I don't have anything about peeking. I have, according to Rashi, citing the Tanhuma, with the exception of the onlookers, with the exception of Moses, of course, sinned grievously in that they, that they gazed at the sacred vision, but not because they looked, while irreverently indulging in food and drink.
Oh, that's interesting.
For that they deserved to die immediately, but God did not stretch out his hand to harm them, in order not to mar the joy of the giving of the Torah.
Huh.
Therefore, the punishments of Nadav, Abihu, and the elders were deferred until later on.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Why Rabbi? Why the eating? Why would that?
I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet.
Because you're in the presence of God and you decide to eat. So it goes on. It's a long commentary. Tur comments that God purposely did not send Eleazar and Isamar, Aaron's younger sons, with the group so that they would not incur the death penalty like their brothers. Had they too died, Aaron would have been left childless.
Ah.
So God knew about all this in advance.
Of course.
I didn't realize that. I never knew this. This is really fascinating.
Yeah, it feels very brand new to me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like somebody just put it in.
I've got more commentary.
That's just an opinion?
Yeah, it's Rashi.
That was Rashi. So
Mine was
Rashi.
Rashi.
Anybody counter that? Was there?
Yeah. Onkelos interprets the eating and drinking favorably. Their joy upon seeing the vision was as great as if they had been enjoying the utmost physical pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Ramban,
That's
too,
sex.
I knew you were going to say.
Ramban, too, has a favorable interpretation of their reaction. After their vision, they ate the flesh of offerings and drank in grateful celebration of the great spiritual privilege God had awarded them. According to Onkelos and Ramban, that they did not sin, the verse speaks in their praise, saying that they suffered no harm, even though they had a profoundly holy prophetic vision that would ordinarily have been far beyond a human being's capacity to endure.
Oh.
Now that's completely opposite from what I saw in Eitz Chaim.
And that was the reason that they died, that the fire thing, I mean, that's really quite a connection.
Yeah, it is. So can we slow down just a touch and
Yep.
just the seeing that they saw the God of Israel. Nachmanides says they didn't see God literally, but they had some sort of prophetic vision.
Yeah,
But
I got that in Sforno too.
right. But Nachmanides has a really interesting comment. It says, Ibn Ezra says that, so this is Nachmanides quoting Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra says they saw him in prophetic vision. The straightforward sense of the expression, the God of Israel, is that the merit of their father Israel, meaning Jacob, was with them, giving them the privilege of seeing this vision. But according to the true interpretation, capital T and true, since the giving of the Torah, it says God spoke, which they reported as, the Lord our God has just shown us God's majestic presence, and we have heard God's voice out of the fire. The text here makes clear that they saw the God of Israel and not the Lord God of Israel, as it says in many other places.
Oh
It is saying that the elders saw more in this vision than the rest of the people down on the ground who saw the great fire, but only through the dense clouds. Onkelos alludes to it by translating they saw the presence of the God of Israel rather than the presence of the Lord appeared to them, as he does elsewhere. So there seems to be a difference between seeing the God of Israel, Elohei Yisrael, and seeing Adonai, Elohei Yisrael.
That is so strange.
Well, that kind of goes along with, I have, Rashi cites Vayikra Rabbah that they saw a vision of God throughout the period of slavery in Egypt. During that time, God kept a sapphire brick at his feet, as it were, as a constant reminder of Israel's servitude with brick and mortar. But when the Jews were freed, his joy was as radiant as the very essence of heaven.
Sforno picks up on that too, and he's also talking about the whiteness of sapphire stone, and like the very substance of heaven's clarity. And he goes on to say, he explains that a transparent body receives all colors in succession because it lacks a color of its own. We can now understand the commentary here of the Sforno. The object referred to here is man's spirit of the intellect, which begins as a clear substance lacking knowledge, just as the sapphire lacks color. Therefore, it is prepared to receive, just as a transparent body can receive, all colors. Hence, Moses, Aaron, and the elders of Israel apprehended God through a prophet's vision. They also comprehended that their intellect and soul was superior and purer than their material being, just as the essence or soul of heaven is purer and more clear than the matter of heaven. So again, it goes back to what you said, David, about this vision was comprehended as if a prophetic vision.
That's a really beautiful use of the sapphire to explain that.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. So Gersonides says that what they saw was they saw that God was Lord of the entire universe, not just the lower material world. So they would not mistake God for the angel that was to be assigned to Israel. So again, they didn't see God's self, but they had some sort of better appreciation for God's power or understanding of God's power. I'm stuck on this God of Israel versus the Lord God of Israel. I'm not sure what that means. What would be the difference?
I would never have picked that out, actually. That's somebody who knows word for word.
Lord of...
Does the Hebrew...
Vayiru et Elohei Yisrael.
Huh. I don't have anything else on that particularly. So for the sapphire...
I say the sapphire has no color, but it does. I don't understand that.
No, black. Black is the absence of color.
Black is the absence of color?
Yeah.
I thought you said white was.
White.
White is all colors.
Oh, wasn't the argument that sapphire was white because it was empty?
Hold on a minute.
Transparent.
Right, but that's not all. Oh, so maybe it's not.
Transparent is not a color.
Right. So he's translating white as transparent, not white.
And he's also saying it is a work of whiteness of sapphire stone.
That's interesting because Eitz Chaim says that it's not really what we know of as a sapphire. It's a lapis lazuli.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It's a transparent body receives all colors in succession because it lacks a color of its own. You're right.
So Ibn Ezra says that in his opinion, the saphir or the sapphire is a red stone.
Oy.
I always thought of it as blue.
So I'm not sure if this matters, but he says, as is demonstrated by the parallel halves in Lamentations 4:7, which says, their limbs were ruddier than coral, their bodies were like sapphire. The fact that there is a second red stone, a carnelian, and Aaron's breastpiece, is not a problem for this interpretation. There is a blood red and a greenish red, and it is the latter that is sapphire. Sadia says that sapphire is white, basing himself on the phrase livnata sapir. But livna has nothing to do with lavan, which means white. Livna means brick, as it's translated in Ezekiel 4:1.
Which is how it's translated here.
Right.
There was you have a pavement of sapphire, but I have the likeness of sapphire brickwork.
Right. So if it's brickwork, then that red makes sense. That sort of ruddy red color.
if you mix red and green, don't you get blue?
I don't know. But then he goes on to
No.
say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Blue, yellow, and red are the three primary colors.
Blue is green and yellow, isn't it?
Yeah, green is blue and yellow.
Oh, right. Sorry.
You have to start with the three primary colors.
So Ibn Ezra goes on to say the sapphire pavement was as pure and clear as the sky. So I don't know how it can be red and clear, unless it was like, what do you call it? Stained glass. And this is the throne which is planted on the visible sky. That's it.
So I have a reference to Ezekiel 1:26, which describes the throne of God, but I have no way to look that up.
The sapphire is a metaphor for the sphere of the separate intelligences.
Oh my gosh. Where'd they get that from?
I'm not sure what that even means.
Can't see the connection to anything.
Okay.
Red with green makes brown, everybody.
What is meant by the Hebrew word?
Which is the color of a brick.
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
Oh, that's where I got blue from. Here, there's a comment here. A decorative floor area of covered bricks or tiles. When they're referring to sapphire, what is meant by the Hebrew word sapphire, rendered sapphire, is not the modern blue gemstone, corundum, which was unknown in the ancient Near East, but the widely used deep blue lapis lazuli. See also Ezekiel 1:26, describing the throne of God.
So now they're saying it's a deep blue?
This is what it is today. It's known as a deep blue, coming from
Lapis lazuli is what it is. She said.
My daughter has a beautiful ring. It's a sapphire. It's blue. It's like it's between a navy and a light. It's not navy blue, but it's lighter than that. So I don't know.
So lapis lazuli is a bright blue metamorphic rock consisting largely of lazurite. A deep blue semi-precious stone,
Yes.
prized since antiquity for its intense color. What? So I'm confused. Why? Where did lapis lazuli come from? Aren't we talking about sapphire?
Well, because what the commentary says is that the Hebrew word sapphire is really not the modern, what we know as the sapphire today. It was really lapis lazuli.
But lapis lazuli is also blue.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but
it's a different blue.
Okay.
It's a deep blue.
Do you have a definition, a description of what corundum is?
Okay, so I just want to show, hold on, I want to show you this to you. Give me I'm going to share my screen real quick. Application window. So tell me if you can see this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the left or my left at least, is lapis lazuli. That's the blue of lapis lazuli. And on the right is sapphire. They are not that different.
One's much brighter than the other.
Yeah, the sapphire is.
Right.
Lapis lazuli has a little bit of like purple in it, which means that it's got a little bit of red in it.
Right.
Can you go back to the picture, please, a minute, David? Because on the lower right, there are three blues, one of them being much darker than the others. There we go.
Right.
All right, but David has to talk so we can see it. David, put your screen up, please.
No, I'll keep it on.
That's better.
No, you have to.
No,
We can't talk. David, you have to talk and nobody else talk.
You can all freeze my screen by clicking on my face in the bottom right. If you click on my face in the bottom right,
Your face isn't there.
Your face
well,
is there.
if you click on my box in the bottom right, then I will stay stuck up on your screen.
Okay, I got
Okay.
it.
So yeah, so there's cobalt, navy blue, and royal blue underneath that.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I just saw the darker blue, and it, the closer we get to black, the more I'm thinking. I don't know.
I just think it's interesting that again, so both of these are blue, and yet Ibn Ezra comes along and says it was red. Where does that come from?
The brick.
I mean, I see where it comes from, but
Yeah.
I've heard that men are more often colorblind than women, but I don't know.
Oh,
Yes,
interesting.
I've heard that. I don't have a kid who's an eye doctor, but I could find out.
so what is carnelian?
Carnelian is a red stone.
Right. A semi-precious stone consisting of an orange or orange-red variety of
There's a little white.
chalcedony. Okay. This is becoming an art class.
Okay, so I looked up
I
Ezekiel.
love art.
I looked up the reference in Ezekiel, and it says, and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the stone was a likeness as the appearance of a man upon it above.
How did they get that? Whoever that commentator.
That's Ezekiel. That's Ezekiel.
Oh,
But the interesting part is the note for that says a sapphire stone, and it refers to Exodus where we are, and it says quoted in the note on verse 22. So I went to verse 22, which says, and over the heads of the living creatures there was the likeness of a firmament, like the color of the terrible ice, stretched forth over their heads above. Over the heads of the creatures appeared a kind of flooring upon which rested the throne of glory of the Lord. Like the color of terrible ice, it was terrible by reason of its glittering brightness. The intention is possibly to suggest that the pale bluish tint of the manifestation of God was the like of a paved work of sapphire stone, and the like of the very heaven for clearness.
is this verse 22 in chapter 24?
No,
She's
this is
looking-
verse 20. I'm in Ezekiel. I'm in
Oh,
Ezekiel.
okay. Because I was going to say.
I just looked. I don't have a 24.
No, I'm in Ezekiel.
Okie doke. Okie doke.
Because in Ezekiel, we have that famous scene where Ezekiel sees God sitting on the throne. So
Yeah.
that's what they're referencing here.
Well, there's a color associated with God.
It wouldn't surprise me
And
if,
we don't know what it is.
well, it wouldn't surprise, I mean, the blue doesn't surprise me because if we think of God in the heavens and up in the sky and Shamayim, so actually, so here's an interesting little piece. So, which I'm sure I've taught before, Dina, but that Shamayim, the heavens, is a combination of two Hebrew words, Aish, which means fire, and Mayim, which means water, right? Shamayim. And so when we pray, Oseh Shalom Bimro, may God make peace in the heavens, what we're actually saying to God is, God, if you can make peace between fire and water, then certainly you can help us make peace here on earth for ourselves.
Fire and water. Fire is red, water
Exactly.
is blue.
Exactly. No, that's what I was getting at. So maybe the fire here, I mean, so maybe both would make sense. Sort of a ruddy red and a blue, water and fire. Yeah. Yeah. No, not together, not mixed together.
No,
All right,
back to
let's
our
keep
text.
going. Verse 11. Yet God did not raise God's hand against the leaders of the Israelites. They beheld God and they ate and drank. So,
Verse 11, where?
where we were just reading.
Chapter 24,
Oh,
verse
okay.
11.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
Ibn Ezra says God did not raise his hand, except for Moses, who had prophesied countless times. None of them had ever prophesied before or seen God, but they lived and felt no fear. Since the text literally says God did not send forth his hand to them, Some think it means that they saw God, but God did not stretch forth God's hand to them, as he had to Moses to give him the tablets. Okay. The leaders of the Israelites. Sadia thinks the text says leaders to include Moses. Otherwise, it could have just said the elders. But in my opinion, it is just the opposite. For Moses was elderly himself. The leaders, literally the rams. What? The rams? Wait a second.
Sounds like a football team.
Ve'el atzile. Yeah, atzile is it also means the rams. Wow. Refers to the firstborn who went up the mountain. But leaders was used instead of firstborn to include Nadav and Avihu in the group.
There's another, Sforno is also saying, however, to these nobles he did not send forth his hand to suspend their senses in order for them to apprehend or grasp what they then saw. And they beheld God in a prophetic vision.
God did not send God's hand to what?
To stop them. Hold on, let me just read the exact.
To suspend their senses, right?
To suspend their senses in order for them to apprehend or grasp what they then saw. He's allowing them.
Yeah.
But what's the word? What does the word shalach mean?
Send.
Because that's interesting. Because Eitz Chaim has it as raise, and my book starts with verse 11, against the great men he did not stretch out his hand.
Right.
So not to the great men, but against them he did not stretch out his hand. So to me, if that's an accurate translation, then that kind of negates the idea of not stretching out his hand for like prophecies or whatever.
So
it brings it back to punishment.
Yes, no, I agree. I actually think you could translate both of those words either way. Ve'el atzile could be to or against, and shalach could either be send or raise. I think those are both good translations.
All right. So Eitz Chaim has a different, I mean, I gave you a whole bunch of stuff before, but it says, could it be that 70 elders saw God while eating and drinking? What happens to people who experience the presence of God in an unusually intense and vivid way? The Talmud chooses not to take the passage literally, understanding it to mean that experiencing God took the place of eating and drinking for these elders, as it did for Moses during his 40 days on the mountaintop. In the presence of God, ordinary physical needs are transcended, and one forgets about the need to eat and drink. In a similar vein, Maimonides maintains that seeing God refers to intellectual perception rather than sensory experience. They did not actually see anything. They came to understand the reality of God more clearly, as one might say, I see. The references to eating and drinking may be the Torah's way of suggesting that the encounter with God was more than an intellectual encounter. It engaged all of the senses. Or it may reflect the anti-ascetic side of Judaism. We need not turn our back on the material experience of this world in the quest for God's presence. God may be found in eating and drinking as readily as in praying.
And I have that follows on that. After their prophetic vision, and they ate and drank, they made a feast afterward without changing their senses. And this they did to rejoice in their spiritual attainment.
So Ibn Ezra echoes some of that. He says, this proves that, as I said, they saw, in quotes, God only in a vision. For it was the leaders who ate and drank, not Moses. Moses saw God at the same time and did not have to eat or drink for 40 days and 40 nights. But as soon as the leaders got down, they had to eat. Onkelos writes that they saw the presence of God, which the text itself says in verse 17, and says that it was, quote, as if they were eating and drinking, being nourished by the presence. That's really beautiful, right? So they weren't literally eating and drinking, but God's presence was nourishing them. Yehuda Halevi thinks it means that they had to eat despite being nourished by the presence. Others say that they made a feast just as the high priest did every year after the Day of Atonement, when he came safely forth from the Holy of Holies.
Do you have in Hebrew, in verse 11, the word yet before they drank and ate? Yet they ate and drank. He did not stretch out his hand. They gazed at God, yet they ate and drank.
So
Yeah.
it's a vav. It's a v.
And so
Right.
it's and.
It's
Okay.
and remember, well, here's what, right, that vav is so important because the vav can either be connecting or disconnecting. So it can either be and or but or yet, right? So it can either be they beheld God and they ate and drank, or it could be they beheld God and yet or but they ate and drank. So that's where all these different interpretations are coming from that one little letter.
Yet he did not raise his hand against the leaders. Yeah.
Well, that's a different yet.
I'm just trying to use this yet to find out how, if it's in Hebrew, the word yet, it sounds almost as if you have this wonderful vision and you still have to go eat and drink for pleasure.
Right. That's exact. That is absolutely one reading. And you could argue the same thing for the beginning of the verse. They saw God, but God did not raise God's hand against the leaders.
Right.
Nachmanides says they ate. That is, they ate the offerings of well-being there at the foot of the mountain in front of God before returning to their tents. For offerings of well-being must be eaten within a separate domain in temple times within the walls of Jerusalem. In the days when sacrifices were offered at Shiloh, they were eaten anywhere within sight of Shiloh. Here they were eaten in front of the altar at the foot of the mountain, but not within the Israelite camp. And then and they drank, they rejoiced and made it a holiday, for it is an obligation to rejoice at receiving the Torah. As soon as you have, this is a quote from Deuteronomy, as soon as you have crossed the Jordan into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall set up large stones, coat them with plaster, and inscribe upon them all the words of this teaching. You shall build an altar to the Lord your God. You shall sacrifice their offerings of well-being and eat them, rejoicing, there's the key word, before the Lord your God. Similarly, as soon as wisdom and knowledge were granted to Solomon, he went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, sacrificed burnt offerings and presented offerings of well-being, and he made a banquet for all of his courtiers. Rabbi Eliezer says, we know from this that one must make a banquet for the completion of reading the Torah. It says of Solomon's father David as well, they offered sacrifices to the Lord and made burnt offerings to the Lord on the morrow of that day, 1,000 bulls, 1,000 rams, 1,000 lambs. With their libations, they made sacrifices in great number for all Israel, and they ate and drank in the presence of the Lord on that day with great joy. They again proclaimed Solomon, son of David, king, and they anointed him as ruler before the Lord, and Zadok as high priest. So here, on the day of our quote-unquote wedding to the Torah, they did exactly the same.
So now I'm really confused. Now it sounds like you're supposed to eat and feast, enjoy.
Right.
After.
Right, that's the key. After.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, they did. They were eating and schlupping right in the presence while they were having this prophetic vision.
Well, maybe. That's where the vav comes in.
Yeah.
So if it's and, so they saw God and they ate and drank, you could understand that as they saw God and then they went down and they ate and drank.
Yeah,
but if you read it the other way, the but, they saw God, but they ate and drank, that's
at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, but how could they have? I mean, they go up to, all the elders go up because it says in the beginning, they went up. You mean they went up carrying food and drink? I don't know. That doesn't sound reasonable. You're about to go see God and you pack a lunch? I mean, it doesn't seem...
It's very funny.
You know, I was davening at another shul this past Shabbos, and they had an alternative minyan. which was really very, not this past Shabbos, 2 Shabbases ago. And it was really very beautiful. And there was a huge service in the main sanctuary. There was a big bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. There was going to be a big kiddush afterward. But in this alternative minyan, they had a table off to the side with punch and cookies. And the rabbi made a point during the service to say, these are not for after the service. Just go whenever you want. Go have a drink, have something to eat. And it was really very beautiful. No one did, interestingly enough. I think that we have a fear of that drinking and eating when you daven is, I don't know, inappropriate or not respectful.
It's hard to concentrate, isn't it? On 2 things at once.
Yeah, but maybe the point is that when you are going to lose your focus, it's like when you're lying in bed and you can't fall asleep, right? You have a choice. You can either lie there and try and force yourself, or you can get up, go downstairs, have some warm milk, check Facebook, do whatever, and then try and go back to bed when you're really tired. So maybe it's the same thing here. When you lose your focus, because you're going to lose your focus, go have some punch and then come back. It was really lovely. It was very nice.
Passover, we drink and pray.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Right. Yeah. That whole service is built around food.
Simchas Torah with all the l'chaims.
Right. Right.
And we're in the sukkah, we pray.
And you all know what we're drinking tonight. Mazel Tov cocktails.
Oh, Mazel Tov cocktails.
You heard about that, right?
Yes.
So,
Dina, you probably didn't hear about it.
No.
Because it made the rounds on social media. So one of Trump's surrogates was talking about something going on. So I don't know what it was. And she meant to say Molotov cocktails. And she said Mazel Tov cocktails. And the internet, blew up. And
I was going to say, yeah.
There are recipes now for Mazel Tov cocktails all over the internet. It's fantastic. Okay. Should we do 12?
Sure.
We have time.
You think so? Okay.
Well, we'll read it.
We'll start.
Not quite 10.
Dina, would you like to read?
The first word. Let's take the first word and argue about it.
Hashem said to Moses.
How can you argue about the?
It's not the. Hashem said to Moses, ascend to me to the mountain and remain there, and I shall give you the stone tablets and the teaching and the commandment that I have written to teach them.
Okay.
The Lord.
So come up to me on the mountain. So this is after the giving of the Torah. So we've gotten the Torah now. Now we're going to get the stone tablets. And wait there for 40 days. Moses was to stay on the mountain until he was given the tablets.
Okay, so the verse specifies tablets, teaching, and commandment. What were they? According to Rashi, citing Rav Sadia, all 613 commandments are subcategories of the 10 commandments, so that all 3 categories are implied in the tablets. Nachmanides comments that the tablets were the 10 commandments that I have written, and the rest of the Torah was not written by God, but would be transmitted to Moses to teach them, that is, to the people. Sforno defines teaching as the philosophical, intellectual aspects of the Torah, and commandment as the rituals that must be performed.
There's something. Are you reading from text now?
No, I'm reading from commentary.
Oh.
I read the text already.
Yeah, but the text you read was in the text that you were reading on. But there's different here. This one.
Right, but they both say, I'll give you the tablets, the teaching, and the commandment, right? Yeah, they both say that.
What number? Because in Eitz Chaim, it began 12. Wasn't that what you were supposed to be reading?
Yes. Hashem said to Moses,
come up on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and commandments which I have inscribed to instruct them.
Right.
And then 13.
No,
No,
I
we
didn't
haven't-
read
We didn't do
13.
that. We didn't read 13.
All I read was 12. Hashem said to Moses,
Okay,
ascend to
sorry.
me to the mountain and remain there, and I shall give you the stone tablets and the teaching and the commandment that I have written to teach them.
Okay.
And
So
Sforno agrees with you, Dina. Torah is the theoretical part of it. Commandment is the practical or active part of it, like you said.
And teaching is the intellectual.
Exactly.
Gersonides says that teachings are the stories which are of value for developing the character and the intellect. The commandments are the rules by which to achieve success.
Right.
Right. So who is this Gershonides? Because we haven't heard from him before.
Well, yeah, we've heard from him a couple times, but not very often. He doesn't get his own spot on the page. Let me look up his
Gershon,
information.
wasn't he a Gayun?
So he was Levi ben Gershon. He lived after, he was a contemporary of Ramban.
Okay.
So 13th century, 14th century, late 13th, 14th century. He's also known as the Ralbag.
The
Say again. Say again.
The Ralbag, Rabbi Levi ben Gershon. Ralbag or
Ralbag,
Gersonides.
I think I've heard before, but
Yeah.
okay.
So there's another nice thing here from, who is it from? From Sforno. If not for the sin of the golden calf, they would have received the entire Torah sealed by the hand of the Creator, just like the Ten Commandments. God apparently stopped writing
Right.
with the thing. The what do you call it?
Yeah.
So it says, and there's another one from Ibn Ezra here that says the stone tablets. Many have been confused by the fact that the text says tablets of stone, but in chapter 34 it says tablets of stones, plural, leading them to think that the first set of tablets was on a single stone and the second set was on two stones. But 34:1 says, carve two tablets of stone like the tablets of stone. Wait a second. No, I skipped. Carve two tablets of stone like the first ones. The singular here merely describes what they were made of. They were stone tablets, not cedar tablets or the like. Or perhaps tablets of stone means that there was originally a single stone and God decreed that it should be cut into two tablets. Another translation, another understanding of the teachings and the commandments is the written Torah and the oral Torah. The Torah and the Talmud.
Right.
But Ibn Ezra says no, he's talking about the tablets, but the two of them.
God agreed. Well, who is he supposed to agree with?
Where do you see that?
You just read that. God agreed they would be. You just read that.
I did? No, decreed.
Oh, okay, I heard.
Okay, so Ibn Ezra says that teachings and commandments really refers to the two tablets. And how do we know that? Because God calls them the teachings and the commandments which I inscribed, because God didn't inscribe the Torah. Moses did that at God's dictation. Others say the teaching refers to the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, and the commandment to the other 9. Others say the teachings are the 8 prohibitions, and the commandments are remember the Sabbath day, honor your father and mother. In my opinion, it is the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, and the 5th, honor your father and your mother, that are the Torah, and the other 8 are commandments.
Wow.
But the teachings and the commandments lead one along the straight path, for God inscribed both of them to instruct us. Wow.
How could he come up with 2 of the commandments, one being 1 and
Yeah.
5 being Torah?
I don't
That's
know. That's it's a good question.
And who was that?
Ibn Ezra.
Yeah.
Gee, I usually like him.
Okay, so wait. So
You're better than
Nachmanides.
Rashi.
Nachmanides comments on Ibn Ezra. So he says, hold on, it says, I see the whole instruction. Rashi takes the stone tablets with the teachings and the commandments to mean that all 613 commandments are included in the 10 commandments. That we already heard. Ibn Ezra says that the teachings are the first and second of the 10 commandments, and the commandments are the remaining 8, which is senseless. For Deuteronomy 5:28 proves that the references to all the commandments. According to our sages, the words which I have inscribed might be a hint that the entire Torah was before God in writing before the creation of the world, as I have mentioned in the introduction to my commentary on Genesis.
I like the way one rabbi says another rabbi's commentary is
You're an
ridiculous.
idiot, right? Wow.
Waste of time.
It's worse than this election season language.
Right, it is. I should just grab Ibn Ezra by the
Throat.
by the commentary.
By the commentary.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's stop there. That's a good place to stop.
We did 3 verses.
That's good. Verse.
But these were
13.
really big verses.
Well, yeah, and yeah, this is good stuff. We're
We
getting into
actually
the
did 4.
we're getting into the juicy stuff now.
Juicy stuff.
All right, everybody.
Okay.
Have a lovely rest
So are
of the
we
day.
going to start with this one, with finishing up this one, or are we going to start with the next one next time?
We can start with 12 again. That's okay.
Have a good evening, especially tonight.
Everyone have a good evening. Pray for the welfare of our country. And hopefully we'll still be here next week.
Next Tuesday.
Next
Bye-bye.
Tuesday. Bye, everybody.